what are the major chemical differences between cold and hot brew?
I guess there's also the sanitation, the hygiene aspect of cold brew, right? If you say, oh, we really want to keep all these reactions down and we keep it at 0 degrees or like up to 4 degrees, right? There's still a problem with the sanitation because eventually dangerous bacteria could grow in the cold brew and mold and so on. So usually there is some temperature, or at least in my opinion, there should be some temperature involved in the production of the cold brew. If not, it could be a health concern. And this temperature would then trigger all those radical reactions and speed them up, even if it's for a very short time.
I think this applies especially for out of home consumption. If you go to a bar and drink cold brew, for the industrial scale production, they will be like aseptic filling or retorting before packaging with the microbial problematics. But I can tell an anecdote from my lab work during my PhD time. I was extracting the high molecular weight fraction, which is like you could imagine it like the brown color molecules, and this took a long time due to the process. And I started it on Friday evening when I left the lab. On a Monday when I returned, there was already like like mold slowly growing on the extract. So coffee is very nutritious and good for molds to be happy and grow, especially at room temperature.
Coffee shops and people who make cold brew, hygiene is really, really important. Keep everything clean if you don't sterilize or pasteurize your brews.
What I did to make sure that it is pretty much clean is I filtered the brew 3 times through like a plate filter to make sure already we get out all the fines. And the side effect was that we also managed to get like a safer brew. Afterwards, we put it into tanks that we put under pressure with nitrogen. And at the end of the day, we managed like this to store a cold brew for around 6 months. We didn't do lab tests, but we tried it after 6 months. And as you can see, I'm still alive. But that you can do maybe for yourself at home, but for sure that's not a way to go for a professional production, and definitely not in a bigger scale.
I'm not an expert on this, but I believe there is also a way to do this on an industrial scale. Like for beer, they do that. They filter the bacteria out from the beer, the bacteria and yeast. So with filters with very fine pores to get rid of them. But I guess a problem with coffee might be that coffee has so many particles that come from coffee that filtration is a problem because all the pores from the filter can get blocked up very quickly.
Yeah, we needed to do 3 different filtration runs. First with like big pores, so really just to take out the boulders, and then step by step we went very fine. And yes, it took very long time to pass the cold brew through those filters. For example, if you use a Mitsudashi and you do this full immersion, so you have the ground coffee inside the water, and afterwards you would try to filter this brew through a Chemex or through a Hario and a normal filter paper. It will stuck after a couple of seconds and it's impossible to get it through. So totally on your side. Too many fines, difficult to filter.
Yeah.
What I can see, just or add from a marketing point of view, is cold brew is really trendy. We can especially see from the US, from consumer research, that cold brew is attracting a younger audience to drink coffee. And we can see it's growing. And maybe, although we now have heard there are hygiene risks, maybe it's a healthier choice to get the caffeine kick from cold brew instead of taking other artificially caffeinated beverages, which also contain a lot of sugar or other chemicals. So I'm looking forward to the positive development of cold brew in the future and how we can attract a younger audience to our beloved coffee industry.
That's
And
maybe what.
if we're talking about this, then we should also mention the Cascara drinks and cold drinks from this, right? Which is also kind of a caffeine kick potential, which has not been exploited yet.
Exactly. Maybe I can add one more thing to the young customers before we can go on with Cascara. I think most young folks, they don't like bitterness in coffee, which is why they, as you said, they drink something sweet, artificially flavored, or they went for a frappuccino, something like also a lot of milk and stuff. So they never chose coffee as some kind of like caffeine kick. But now they can drink black coffee with 0 calories, get the caffeine. It's not bitter. They don't need any sugar in it. But on the other hand, I see one problem coming for the coffee industry or for everyone who wants to do cold brew that is somehow like a seasonal beverage. That's maybe worth to consider that market research found that most cold brew, or twice the cold brew, is consumed in summer seasons, even 3 times. So maybe worth to keep in mind. And coming back to Cascara, I think that is like really one of the beverage in the future. So for the people who don't know what Cascara is, it's you could imagine it like a tea made out of the dried coffee cherries of the deep pulped coffee fruit, and you could either like brew it hot and drink it hot, or drink it like an iced tea, and it has a lot of caffeine in it. It tastes very well like like a fruit tea, so to say. I don't know, Andre, have you ever tried it?
Yes. I tried lots of it. I also tried to make nitro cascara, which is also super tasty, because very often when you serve someone cascara and you don't tell them what they are drinking now, they will come back to you and say, oh, this is like kind of a tea. It's like an infusion, or it's like a fruit tea. And then you explain them what it is, and they all come back and say, yeah, but the texture or the body is very watery. So that's why I also try to infuse nitrogen to give it, or just to give a perception of it's a heavy body beverage. But depending on the raw material you use, it can be beautifully sweet. So many of my friends also ask, have you added any sugar? So no. So depending of your brewing method and the quality of the cascara you got, it can be super refreshing, and it can be beautifully sweet. It is a traditional beverage, you know, coming from Ethiopia or Yemen. They sometimes drink it hot. They add cardamom or other spices. So you have this side of like a warm beverage that should warm you up and even spice you up. And then you have a lot of refreshing ideas where you add orange juice or lime juice on ice. So it's very versatile. It's a beautiful beverage.
The sweetness comes from the residual sugar in the cascara. So I had once one cascara in Switzerland. I don't name the brand now. So it was like the natural cascara, and I think it has like 18 calories on 100 milliliters. So there's quite a lot of residual sugar still in the coffee cherry, which is maybe worth to consider. But if you compare it to Coke or something, like it's just 1/3 or 1/4 of the sugar and calories. So it's still super, like, more on the healthy side. And as you said, like, it's a traditional beverage which is very well suited to be also, like, for example, spiced up with ginger and other of those kind of like health positive related ingredients like turmeric and so on and so on. Like, it goes well with acidic, and it goes well with sweet taste profiles.
But it's not yet allowed to put it on the market in Europe in a commercial sense, right?
Yeah.
No, it's
So
not. No,
so there's
I
this
know there's
novel.
one company which is fighting with this. I know, but probably not the only one. And they've been doing this since the company's Panama Varietals. I know them. They are trying to make it legal because they want to start this Cascara revolution, and they've been fighting this since I think something like 3 years to make it legal, and it's still didn't work.
This has some resemblance of this stevia law stuff going on some years ago. In Europe, there's this thing called novel food regulations, and everything which was not known on the European market before, let's say 2002 or something like that, is considered as novel food, and thereof you need to have like a trial, and you have to have admittance by the FSDA in Italy to that you can sell the beverage on the market. And Cascara, under that perspective, though people drink it for centuries, and Ethiopia is novel to the European market, which is stupid in my opinion. But laws do not have to be just. It's law and not just.
The beverage is beautiful, and especially when you look at the value chain. I mean, it's a waste product. So you have the cherry. Inside the cherry, normally you have the 2 beans, and then you take the beans out and you throw away all the cherry. And when you have been in a wet mill, you will see most of the wet mills, they will just dump it somewhere, or maybe they use it as fertilizer, but otherwise they just dump it. So it would be there to be used. So if we could reuse it and generate an additional income stream for the coffee farmers and the producers at origin, that would just be beautiful. So that's why I hope that one day Cascara will be legally okay for Europe and the world. That could be a really good additional income stream for the coffee origins. That's why I also think is a good thing to investigate and push the boundaries.
And there are so much more products which you can think of. Like you don't have to just think of teas. You could also make fruit pulps out of it, like the jams, add it to snack bars, put it into your cereals as dried fruits. Like there's so many possibilities. You could have caffeinated cereals in the morning just by having added cascara and stuff like that. So I'm really hoping that this comes to market sooner than later.